Buffalo Bill once said, when the legend becomes bigger than the man, believe the legend. I'm called the Buzzard Eater from Kanab, Utah, fastest gun in Utah. I've been a mountain man, a gunfighter, born in the wrong century. Of course, I probably wouldn't live very long if I lived back in the 1800s. Oh, shoot. Well, my name is Ron Gorman. I believe in promoting the past, teaching the past, feel that people should know the true history. Over the years, I've been called many different names by mountain men and Indians. I've been called Crazy Dog, Walking Skunk, Buzzard Eater, so I'm known by many names, depending on where I go. Buzzard Eater came about when I started studying the Huron Indians, and they had captured some white women and taken them to their village. Well, eventually they escaped, and they had many miles to cross through mountains and deserts and such. And in their diaries, they wrote about how they would lay naked upon the rocks until the buzzards came down, and then they would snatch them and eat them. So I had to find out what a buzzard tastes like. That's when they started calling me the Buzzard Eater. So, and that name is stuck for the last, I don't know, about 10 years now. Now, when you start getting hooked on history, you can't stop there. You have to continue. So the next step was to study the Civil War. And of course, I wanted to be a Confederate, a rebel. So I became a captain in the Confederate Cavalry in Richmond, Virginia. Got into the guns, and in fact, the gun I carry is an 1858 Remington, and it was carried by Union officers in the Civil War, 44 caliber. So after that, it was time to get into the next era, which was the gunfighters. Because if you study the Civil War, you'll see that at the end of the Civil War, when there were raiding parties going out onto different ranches and farms, the owners of these ranches and farms learned that if they were fast with a gun, they could protect themselves. And this became the era of the gunfighter, the quick draw artist. That period became fascinating to me, and then I found an organization called the Single Action Shooting Society, which goes from 1860 to 1889. And in that organization, you have to have the clothes, you have to have the guns. You cannot compete or go to these meets unless you have the stuff to fit into that era. We used to have quick draw contests. I saw people who were just so fast with a gun, it was unbelievable. And I started getting into doing quick draw. When you're sitting on your horse and you're yelling charge and you're running at Yankees and this kind of thing, you're playing a character. And it's the same with the Single Action Shooting Society. Once you dress into your costume and you take the new name, then you become that character. You become that deadly gunfighter. Well, I fought a few wars in America. Not pretty ones. They were real-life wars. People don't know about the outlaw wars, the biker wars. I fought in the war back east between the warlocks, the pagans, the breed, the chingalings, and the outlaws. And that was a bloody war. When I came back from Vietnam, I was crazy. I totally rejected society, authority, and there was a motorcycle club called the Warlocks, which were mostly Navy sailors, ex-sailors. And so I became an outlaw biker. And then we had the war, which covered New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, all these clubs, everybody just killing everybody, and bombs under cars, and I ended up doing 5 months in prison. When I came to Utah, I started riding with a group called the Brothers, and we went to war with the Sundowners. Here I was again, back in another freaking biker war. Yeah. I don't ride with clubs anymore. I've given up the outlaw life. I still build and ride Harleys, but I ride alone. I ride with no man. I'm too old to fight. You know, after Vietnam, I went, yeah, there can't be a God. I just can't handle that concept. Not after what I've seen. You know, the worst of man. It's kind of hard to talk about. I actually take pills every night so I don't remember my dreams. I mean, that's how bad, war affects you. But it was indiscriminate killing, too. First off, we were all drug crazed. I was mainlining cocaine. We had dope, we had morphine, we had all kinds of drugs and stuff. Most of us were half crazy as it was. But we did a lot of nasty stuff. There were executions, torture. A few times I took scalps. I actually scalped my victims and hung their scalps from my belt. There was no CNN looking over your shoulder. So you could get away with a lot of stuff. I mean, even the officers were killed by their own men. You know, if an officer pissed off his men, they did what was called fragging, where they walked by the tent and tossed in a grenade. And that was the end of the officer. Yeah, there was some nasty stuff and things that you never realize that a human being could do, that you become part of it. And but I felt so guilty that I put these tattoos on there to remind me for the rest of my life of the people that I did kill. You know, kind of a self-punishment thing. The dreams, that's what you got to keep away, is the dreams. Since the Iraq War began, over 1,000 soldiers have committed suicide. So that shows you what it does. It's a fight for the rest of your life. And I wish I never had experienced it, but I did, so I got to live with it. When you get back to the States, you don't just drop it. You know? That's why I got into the outlaw biker thing, because that was another war. That was another war for me to fight, man. It was a continuation of Nam. To continue killing, to continue fighting, to be some badass dude who, won't take crap from nobody. That's why the reenacting is a way to release without actually hurting people. Because doing the outlaw biker thing, you were actually hurting people. But then when I could become a Confederate killing Yankees, or I could become a gunfighter and outdraw somebody, because there's a real thrill, a real rush when you come face to face with somebody and you wonder who's the fastest. And of course, when we do that, we use blanks. But I guess that's my way of releasing that kind of stuff, so I don't really kill people anymore.